I'm getting that itch again. We've been doing a ton of illustrations lately, but I just need to make something. It's good for my soul. So I took a trip to Hobby Lobby and I picked out a couple of things. The first thing I picked out was this heat transfer vinyl. The idea is I'll be able to print whatever I want onto this paper, and then with the power of heat, aka an iron, I should be able to press it onto my fabric, which I picked this up as well. It's a little tote bag. So the idea is I'll have my cool little illustration on this bag. You know, I can wear it around. I can be a tote bag kind of guy. I don't know, I've never had a tote bag, but I thought it'd be worth a shot for the video. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get the iPad out, we're gonna do a little bit of illustrating, and if everything works out right, at the end of this video, we'll have a cool product. So without further ado, let's jump into it. For this project, I'm gonna be jumping into Procreate on the iPad. And if you're a subscriber of mine, you might be thinking, Procreate? Usually you're in Adobe Illustrator for your illustrations. But for this task, I think Procreate is gonna be exactly what I'm looking for. I'm doing like a Western theme, and I think the brushes in Procreate lend themselves more to like an organic, rustic feel, which is what I'm looking for. The idea that I had was to take the middle of the bag and fill it with some kind of like copy. I don't know, I'll use some kind of text with a saying. I haven't really thought that far yet, but I do know I want to take a bunch of the items that I'm working on here. I think I end up with like 12, and I want to kind of float them around the copy. Obviously, I'll like fill in a lot of the white space and make sure the composition is good, but the thing I need to worry about first is just getting some nice, clean illustrations. Speaking of like nice, clean illustrations, I love how I did this with the color palette. If you look in the top right hand side of my board, you can't see it at this particular instance, but you will see it when I zoom out. I found a nice color palette. I think, there you go, you can see it right there on the top right. But I found that on Google. I just searched like Western color palette. There's also sites like Coolers and a bunch of different places where you can find color palettes, but this is kind of like an illustration cheat code, honestly. If you're like stuck with color theory, or maybe your illustrations are just looking a little bit flat, I would highly recommend starting with some type of palette and then working from there. I think this just makes it look really polished, and it feels like you had a vision when you start with a nice color palette. So I don't know, maybe give that a shot. All right, so I'm working on the star here. Everything else was pretty organic, but I could not get this star right when it came to proportions. So I just went to Google and found an image, and I threw it in Procreate, lowered that opacity, and then traced it. I know some people might give me some grief for doing that, but I really don't care. I don't think it makes anybody less of an illustrator. Sometimes you get blocked and you just need a little bit of help, and that's the great thing about using an iPad. I mean, speaking of help, this is the symmetry tool here, which is actually inside of Procreate, and it's the best tool ever for doing symmetrical drawings. Basically, you'll see the line right down the middle. Whatever I draw on the left side, the program will draw it on the right side. So this was super helpful when I was doing this skull, and I actually use this for another piece in my illustration that you'll see in a couple more seconds. So things like cactuses I really like to draw because they don't have to be symmetrical. Unlike the skull, which is, very balanced, the cactuses are organic shapes and they just grow out in the wild. So I like drawing those because there's no such thing as like a wrong way to draw a cactus, right? Because there's no way to predict what a cactus is gonna look like. It just has to be close and whatever you can pull out of your mind. So here I am doing the symmetry tool again. This thing is just awesome. I could have gotten away with drawing the horseshoe organically, but look how much better it looks with the left and right side perfectly mirrored. Even with the colors, the mirroring works. You'll notice too some of those cross hatches. I've been doing it on a bunch of my elements. This just gives more to that rustic feel, which is what I'm looking for. Here's a little cheat too. I really like how I did this. So I needed to do a moon, but I knew I wouldn't be able to get this shape perfectly. So I take two circles and then overlap them and drop the opacity. And then where the intersection is, I use that to make my moon. I don't know, maybe you can freehand a moon, but I like the effect that this added, just being perfect because I used two shapes. This was another cool one. This is like a canyon or a mountain. I was kind of iffy about this one. I feel like this one's like a good illustration slash life lesson. I was gonna give up on this one, but I just kept going. And the more I started adding the shadows and the highlights, the more I was like, oh, this does make sense. I just needed to trust myself a little bit more. So if you're ever in the middle of an illustration, kind of second guessing yourself, at least you owe it to yourself to see it through, because you're probably gonna get it a lot closer than you think you are. So again, another organic shape. This is like an aloe plant, and this is actually the last one in this set. So I really enjoyed working on these, and as I was doing it, I felt like I was getting better and better. So maybe I need to do 24 of them. All right, so I just got done throwing everything into Adobe Illustrator. This was just like the quickest way for me to organize everything. Let me turn the camera on and show you guys what I've done. So you see I've got all of my illustrations inside of Illustrator. I know they're not vector or whatever because I did them in Procreate, but this just allowed me to kind of put them the way I want. I was able to do some typography too. So I've got cowboy stuff here. I thought it was a fun little saying. I didn't have anything, more clever to say, but I've got everything kind of scattered around. I did add these little stars too, just to fill some of that white space. And this is kind of the idea that I'm going to have putting it into the bag. So what the idea is, I'm going to export every asset individually, and then I'll throw those into Cricut, and then we can start printing them out individually, and hopefully I can organize them on the bag, iron them, and it should work out. We'll see. This kind of took forever, but I've got everything uploaded inside of Cricut Maker. Everything is its own individual asset, so I just had to go through and place everything. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click print. I'm going to do print and cut, and we're just going to start printing these items out. So let's do it. Just pulled the prints off. They're looking great. You can see the quality. You can zoom in a little bit. The printer's always great though. I've used this printer for the last year and a half. It's the Epson EcoTank 2800. Fantastic printer. I couldn't recommend it more. So I do have the link in my description. So these are looking good. What I gotta do next is get the Cricut out. I'm gonna set that up, and we gotta get each one of these cut out. So let's do that. Make sure those corners match up real good. I did ask the printer to print with a bleed, so everything should be a little bit thicker than it's supposed to be. I did that on purpose because I want to get it to print directly onto the line. That's the idea, right? So hopefully when this prints out, it should be perfectly cut and go right to the edge. That's the goal here. So I'm just gonna make sure this is nice and stuck, and that should be good. I feel like I need to sit down for this part. The cut turned out really good. Here, I can show you a little closer. The cut is good. I didn't weed some of this stuff out. That's fine. But yeah, the cut's good. This is exactly what I was wanting. The problem is I didn't think about this. I'm supposed to reverse everything because the colored side is what gets put onto the canvas, and then I iron it on. So this is all supposed to be reversed because if I don't do that, it's going to be backwards. So I just wasted time and also material, because now I'm going to have to go and redo this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reprint this, and we'll come back after I do that. Great. All right, I've got my bag here, and then I've got all my cutouts over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start laying them out, kind of getting an eyeball vision of what I'm thinking. All right, I got this laid out. I think it's right. I just had to eyeball it. Luckily, there are these lines on the back of this paper, so it's pretty close. I think we're just going to run with it and hope for the best. So it came with this parchment paper. I'm going to throw that on top, kind of flatten everything out. And then I'm just going to take my iron and hope for the best. I'm really not sure how long I'm supposed to do this for. All right, nothing seems to be happening. I'm putting a little bit more pressure on it now. Hopefully that fixes this. I don't know. I really don't know what I'm doing. So I think I got this wrong. I think you're supposed to peel it off of the back of this. So you're supposed to peel the white part off. So we're totally redoing this. Also too, that totally changes everything about what I thought. The images don't actually need to be reversed like I had thought. So now we're going to redo that as well. That took forever. I've got everything laid out. I think this is right. So now I think I put the parchment paper on top, and then I heat it up, and it should stay. Yeah, we're just going to see what happens. I don't want to burn it. I'm going to do it a little bit longer. Yeah, I think this is right. I'm starting to see it come through I'm seeing like the texture of the bag. Okay, I think this is working. I'm getting a little excited. All right, I'll zoom in a little bit and you can see what I'm seeing. I don't know if you can see that, but you can see like the fibers through it. So I think this is right. Well, what do you guys think? I'm super pumped with how this turned out. I wasn't sure when I started this because I've never done printable vinyl and I've never done like any of the iron-on stuff with this, but the quality of this turned out so good. It's like part of the fiber. It adhered really well. I could tell it's gonna be fine. Like I can be rough with it. It'll be good. Overall, super pumped with how this turned out. I really love the illustrations too. I know I kind of veered away from my traditional style, but just everything about this I think is exactly what I was hoping for, exactly what I wanted. Let me know, should I do more videos like this? Should we do more of this like printable vinyl iron-on stuff? Let me know in the comments below. Well guys, that's all I got for you. If you liked the video, you already know what to do. Until the next time, peace.